Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the spring training webinar covering Child Find, June Exit, and Post-School Outcomes. This is Jackie McKim. I'm a research analyst with the Special Education Data Unit, and with me today I have Linda Brown, who's an education specialist, and she's going to talk about Child Find, and I'm going to talk about June Exit. If you have questions, please type it in the question box and we will answer as soon as we can or at the end of the section. If you do type your question in the chat, in the question box, if you mark it as private, then we'll probably just wait on answering those after we get it back to our desk. So if you do mark it that way, we'll answer after the webinar. So the next thing, this is going to be today's agenda. And the collections that we're going to cover today is Child Find, June Exit, and Post-School Outcomes. And with that, we're going to talk about Child Find first, and I'm going to turn it over to Linda Brown.
Hi, this is Linda Brown. First off, let's talk about the dates. So this collection opens on Thursday, May 23rd, 2019, and closes on Monday, July 1st, 2019. So what is Child Find? The requirement of the state to identify students with disabilities and evaluate for special education services. Child Find relates directly to the evaluation timeline for schools and for ECSE. The Child Find data collection is how ODE reports the information to the federal government. All referrals to determine initial eligibility are included in this collection. Next page. So why do we collect data for Child Find? ODE collects data to ensure that students are being evaluated in a timely manner across the state. We collect data to determine if systemic issues are occurring in the state of Oregon. The goal of Child Find is to improve outcomes for students by determining if students with disabilities are eligible for special education services and to make sure that they do qualify, they are found eligible in a timely manner. When we delay evaluations, students aren't able to receive the services and the supports they need to be successful. The data collection informs districts of the specific causes of noncompliance. The student level, school level data in combination with the proper use of the reason timeline not met code allows districts to pinpoint any areas of noncompliance or areas needing improvement in the evaluation process. So Part B, Child Find requirements. So Part B is ECSE and school age. When students are receiving ECSE services and are initially evaluated for ECSE at the age of 3, they reported on this collection. When students in ECSE are evaluated, or when school-age students K through 12 are evaluated for initial services, these are reported in this collection. All evaluations should be considered re-evaluations even when transitioning from ECSE to school age. Other requirements for Part B. First, the step of the evaluation process is a reviewing of the existing records. Remember, a review of existing records does not require written consent. This is a part of the evaluation planning meeting. We review records to determine if additional information is needed to determine eligibility. If no additional information is needed to determine eligibility, no consent for evaluation is needed. So that's really important. If you don't need to do any additional evaluations, you do not need to get a consent. In addition, for students who have been exited and are being re-evaluated for initial evaluation, you may not need additional evaluation data to find the student eligible for special education services. Teams may determine that the file contains sufficient information to determine eligibility. In this case, you would not need to sign consent. No evaluation timeline would begin. Remember, Child Find data collection is the 60-day evaluation timeline, which starts the day the parent signs consent. For students moving into the state without the state eligibility, the same conditions apply. Review the records, determine if additional assessment information is needed. If so, Signed consent is required and starts the 60-day evaluation timeline. If no consent is needed, no records need to be reported to the child find data collection. Child find reporting period. So the child find reporting period for school age starts the date the parent actually signs consent. And this is an evaluation that's completed between July 1st, 2018 and June 30th, 2019. Initial evaluation consent date. Even if a parent, this is for early childhood, even if a parent completes the consent and signs it, but waits a while before that document's actually turned in, you still need to go back to the date that the parent actually signed the initial consent. Also, when you're reporting the date, you need to have it in the month, date, and year in the right configuration. So you'll see MMDDYYY is the system or the format you need to put in dates. Initial eligibility determination dates. Leave yourself wiggle room in case eligibilities cannot be determined at the first meeting. Again, any eligibility is completed between July 1st, 2018 and June 30th, 2019 should be included. Was the child found eligible? Well, that's an interesting question. We have some different scenarios to share with you. Example 1. The student was referred 3 times, and each determination was between July 1st and June 30th. But the child was not found eligible the first 2 times and found eligible the 3rd time. The 3rd record would be the record you report. Situation 2. The student was referred 3 times, and each determination was between July 1 and June 30th. The student was not found eligible the first time, found eligible the 2nd time, and not found eligible the 3rd time. 2 records will be reported. The first referral where the student was found not eligible, and the 2nd referral when the student was found eligible. The 3rd referral would not be reported because the student had already had an established special education eligibility. And then situation 3. The student was referred 3 times, and each determination was between July 1st and June 30th. The student was found eligible the first time, but no placement was made into special education, so the parent did not give consent for special education. The student was found eligible the 2nd time, and again, the parent did not provide consent for special education. The student was found eligible the 3rd time, and then was provided consent for special education by the parent. So in this case, all 3 records would be reported. So number of days. School days, the school days are the days the school's actually in session, or at least half of the day. School days do not include holidays, staff development days, grading days, snow days, orientation days. Remember to have your school calendar with you when you're counting the days. So you're really counting only the days the student actually, the days you actually had school, and looking at your whole school district calendar. Reasons timeline not met. If the number of school days exceeds 60 school days, the reason timeline not met code is entered. Codes 2, 5, and 6 require a comment, and codes 2, 7 are exemptions. So code 2 is not automatically exempted. ODE will determine the exemptions after reading the comments. Comments and clarification should be specific and thorough as possible. In codes 5 and 6 are also required comments, so be as specific as possible. We do look at each individual student's evaluation timeline and the reasoning codes, and then we make determinations here at ODE if we feel things are accurate. ODE encourages districts to have their staff make comments when using number 6. This information will be used by the district to improve practices and decide if additional codes are needed. Please provide specific information when leaving comments to assist with the assessment of noncompliance. ODE will again review all these comments to determine the appropriate coding. Okay. What code should you use? That's often a question we have around here. We have several different scenarios here for you. The first one, the doctor's appointment. The school district was unable to get a doctor's appointment within the amount of time, within that 60-day timeline. And in this case, that would be delayed by school district. The second one, ESD required case history, which took time to complete. Again, this would be a delay by district. Student was absent 9 days. Again, this is a delay by school district. Guardian could not attend to the meeting. This is yet another reason for a delay by district. And also, meeting needed to be rescheduled is also an area that would be flagged as delayed by district. So the best advice we can give you is to be very thoughtful about your timelines, work on getting the medical information as soon as you possibly can to prevent falling into these areas where we find that the district has been delayed. Steps to submit data. Data must be submitted by 11:59 p.m. on July 1, 2019. We recommend that it's done before 5 o'clock. After that, there'll be no one here to help you. So if you can get those things in as early as possible, we want to provide you as much support. But if you do turn it in late on the day on July 1st, there may not be somebody here at OD to help you. Okay, review window audits. So once you turn in your data collection, there will be an opportunity to review your audits. There's two different areas you might want to look at. Look at the school days and also look at the claim students to make sure they're accurate. Correction report. 3 areas to look at for correction reports would be the eligibility. You really need to compare your records, child find to the December child count. The students were not found eligible or their parents did not give consent, but the student was reported on the December child count. Look for duplicates, and again, look for incorrect reporting records. If you have any questions or concerns over looking at your report, by all means, give us a call and we'll help you. So this is our special education data team, and this again is Linda Brown. I can help you with the content and really understanding what codes you need. Jackie, James, Cynthia, and Mary really can help you with the system that we use to collect this information. So we'll pause here just for a moment, and we'll see if there's any questions that you might have about child find. Okay, let's see. So if a new referral becomes eligible, but the parents sign the consent for initial placement and marked refused, do we add them to the child count? So in the first one, the student was evaluated, found eligible, and the parents did not provide consent for special education. This record would be turned in. There is a question within the data collection that asks you, did the parent provide consent for special ed, yes or no? So this would be something that would be a part of the data collection for child find. Is there anything else there? Like we might have one more question, so we'll look and see if we can get that one opened up. Oh. Just wanted to confirm if early intervention students receiving services were enrolled for kindergarten and no additional testing needed, they are not on the child find collection. So if you have a student that's eligible for ECSE and special education, there would not be a new evaluation for school districts. So those transitions, those eligibilities transition right into school age, and you wouldn't need to conduct a new evaluation. Other questions we have here. Did you use the start date of the next school day? So they're asking about the day you sign. So The day you actually sign the eligibility, that would be the date that the eligibility's in place. It wouldn't be the next day. It would be the day that you actually have that meeting. Yeah. Is there a manual for this collection for instructions? Yes, there is. You can find that on the ODE Child Find page. You can also find it in the information where you're
the district, it's the district site, so district.ode.state.or, and go to the schedule of due dates, which is kind of like in the middle of the page. Expand that window, and then you can search for the Child Find collection.
I can send in April, and the student is found eligible in September when they are reported. So it sounds like you had an evaluation that the student was eligible in April, but the parent did not give consent for until September. In that case, once you have an eligibility in place, you have 30 days to develop an IEP, so it really wouldn't be appropriate to have an eligibility in April and then waiting all the way till September. It might be if it's an ECSE child that you did the eligibility in April, but you know the student's not going to be in school until December or until September. You could do some things on your service summary page about the dates services start. So if you have more questions about that transition, give us a call. Some of those can be kind of tricky and we can walk you through them. The question is, does the collection or does the timeline start when the parent signs it? And the parent, whatever day they sign that document, that starts the clock for the 60-day school day timeline for the evaluation. If you're EI, ECSE, or EI, it's 45 calendar days. Question about, did the guardian not attend the meeting? By all means, we want our guardians to be there and our parents to be there, and we need to make multiple attempts to have them attend the meeting, giving them an opportunity to maybe use a telephone, use a call-in, Zoom, or whatever. But if after all that and it's well documented and you're not able to get the parents in, document that, but then go ahead and move forward with your meetings. See anything else in there? Most of those questions are also addressed within our Child Find manual, but again, if you have any questions, give us a call. We're here to help you. So I think with that, we'll move to our next section.
Okay, so special education June exit. So it's just like Child Find. It's going to open May 23rd and close Monday, July 1st. And what you're going to report is, for this collection is, this is going to be students who are ages 0 through 21 who have exited special education between July 1st of 2018 and June 30th of 2019, with the exception of kindergarten students can't be reported as a dropped out category. So when you're exiting a student, you have to indicate the date that the student exited the special education program. And again, the date reported has to fall between July 1st, 2018 and June 30th of 2019. And be careful not to confuse exiting special education with exiting school. Although for some students this occurs simultaneously, students who continue to receive special education services even after receipt of a certificate, extended, or modified diploma have not yet officially exited special education because they are still eligible for FAPE or a free and appropriate public education. So this collection is also for students who successfully transitioned from early intervention to early childhood special education, so from EI to ECSE, on their 3rd birthday. These records are reported as record type A2 or an active record in order to track that they exited EI and entered early childhood special education. These exit data are primarily used for federal reporting purposes, so accuracy and data validity is very important. So this data is actually used, and we then have to turn around and report it to the federal government. Note that other types of active records may also be submitted on the June exit. For these active records, which are A1s and A3, you may report students with IEPs or eligibility dates that are out of compliance, as agency serving code 80, and this will allow you to bypass the validation rules for IEP or eligibility dates. But note that A1, A3, and agency serving code 80 records are optional for June exit, and we will not audit those for accuracy, and we're actually no longer using those. So they are for district use only now. So for June exit, your counts must be unduplicated within a district, so you're only going to report one record per student as a district or program. And for June exit, what's new for 2018-19? There's no change to the file layout. There is the new gender code X, which is a non-binary option, so male, female, and gender code X are now those three options. Out-of-state placement, we do ask, we're changing the guidance. In years past, we do ask now that you use enrollment type code O or A rather than N. We used to have in our example to N, and now we're asking, we feel it's more appropriate to use an O or an A. The process and content appendices, there's now a supplement that contains those appendices, which are the lists of, long-term care and treatments, approved privates, JDEPs, YSETs, et cetera, and institution IDs. We've now parsed that out, and it's in a separate document. So when you go to the district page in the sides and look up, there's the process and content manual, which gives you all the information about codes and reporting and examples for both June exit and child find, but the P&C are now look for the supplement to look up those institution IDs. And then finally, the final submission form, we now require that be submitted by the due date on the form. We ran into some problems in the last year with somebody not submitting it, and it's a year later, and so now we do ask that you get those into us on time. If you do run into problems, as always, though, we're here to help, and we're not going to ding somebody and for something that they don't have any control over. So if you are running into problems, just let us know, and we can help. And then with reporting, you're going to report, there's reports of EI, or early intervening, early childhood special ed, which is ECSE, and school age records, that exited records that are reported on this report. And EI is birth through 2, ECSE is ages 3 through 4, and school age are students kindergarten through 21, and you're going to report them the date that they exited special education. The record type code for exited EI is E1. ECSE, you would use record type code E2. And for school age students, you would use record type E3. Additionally, for children transitioning from EI to ECSE, so early intervening students not exiting special ed, just the EI or early intervening program, these students are going to be reported as in the exit collection, but as record type A2, which is active ECSE. And also, you're going to report ECSE children exiting special education or transitioning to school age as an active record. So you have two types if you're an EI ECSE program reporting exiting data or reporting the data for June exit. So again, counts in the collection must be unduplicated within a district. That means if a child comes and goes in special education throughout the reporting year within a district or a program and do not resume services by the end of the reporting period, report the most recent exit date. Conversely, do not exit this student if they have an active IFSP or IEP within the district or program by the end of the reporting period as of June 30th, 2019. So similar to the above bullet, if a student comes and goes in special education within a district throughout the year but are back by July 1, 2018, or by the end of the day, June 30th of 2019, they are not considered exited. When exiting EI children or exiting Part C, exit all children for whom the Part B eligibility has not been determined. This includes children who were referred for Part B evaluation but for whom eligibility determination was not made or reported by the child's 3rd birthday, or whose parents did not consent to transition planning. And when exiting ECSE, children include all children who are no longer eligible for services and all early childhood special education children transitioning to kindergarten, regardless of whether they are or are not eligible for school-age services. The next 3 slides will show the codes used to describe how a student exited special education. Exit reason codes 10 through 19 are for children exiting EI programs. Codes 20 through 29 are for children exiting ECSE programs, and then codes 30 through 39 are for students exiting school-age programs. Many of the codes are similar between EI, ECSE, and school-age, so I'm going to touch base on some of the codes that are unique between EI, ECSE, or school-age. So the codes on this slide, codes 10 through 19, are used, as I said earlier, for exiting EI children. So 10, these are those children that have not reached maximum age for Part C, but have completed their IFSP and are no longer require services under Part C. Code 11, these are children who have been referred for Part B services, but the determination has not been made by their 3rd birthday. Code 12, in some instances, EI children may be found not eligible for Part B and are exited with referrals to other programs such as preschool learning centers, Head Start, child care centers, or other health and nutrition centers such as WIC, and that would be the code that you would use in that instance. Code 13 for children exiting with no referrals, you're going to use that code. 19, that's when for contacts unsuccessful, you're going to include all children who had active IFSP and for whom personnel have been unable to make contact or locate the family or child after repeated documented attempts and who have not been counted in categories 16 through 18. And 16 is moved with Oregon, 17 is moved out of state, and 18 is withdrawal by the parent or guardian. And then moving on to codes for exiting for ECSE. These are codes 20 through 29 and are similar to some of the EI codes. Code 20, these are your children that exited ECSE and were determined eligible for school-age services. 21, these are children who have been referred for school-age services, but the determination has not been made yet. 22, meaning those are children, meaning children who have reached maximum age for ECSE and were determined not eligible for school-age services, but referred to other programs such as health or nutrition services like WIC. And 23, those are children who have exited ECSE with no referrals. And then Code 24, these are students who have successfully completed their IFSP. And I'm not going to talk about the rest of those. I think those are kind of self-explanatory. Like I said, they're just like the EI codes. And then next, I'm going to talk about the codes for exiting school age. And these are codes 30 through 39, and they're used to exit school age students and are a little different than the EI ECSE codes. So 30 is graduation with a regular diploma. That's, of course, used for students who exited an education program through receipt of a regular high school diploma. When a student receives a regular high school diploma, of course, FAPE or free and appropriate publication ends. So you do have to exit them on the date that they leave school. So 31, a modified diploma is a diploma type option that meets the criteria for a modified high school diploma. Receipt of a modified diploma does not automatically terminate a district's responsibility for providing FAPE like a regular diploma. Students are still eligible for transition services and earn the right the right to continue to earn a regular diploma if they decide they want to up until they reach age 21. Code 33, students who return to regular education have been evaluated and have been determined that they are no longer eligible for special education services. If that's the case, you would use 33, and this would include students who left to attend homeschool, whose parents have revoked consent in writing for all special education services. Code 34, students These are students who have reached the maximum age of 21 without receiving a diploma, certificate, or any other type of credential, and should be coded as 34. Do remember that students who turn 21 during a school year may continue to receive services throughout the rest of the school year. Code 35, codes 15, 25, and 35 are for students who exited as deceased. This code does not need much explanation. However, every year we resurrect students that have been incorrectly coded as deceased, so be careful with that particular code of 35, 15, or 25, and it happens sometimes. It's usually accidentally selecting the wrong code. Code 36, some students will move and continue education, not just special education, in another district. Districts may need to do some investigating to find out where a student has ended up to avoid having to code that student as dropped out. The dreaded Code 39, students who have moved from a district but ended up back within the district before the school year ends should not be exited. And we always recommend that you check the SSID system to see if a student showed up in another district, because like we said, you want to avoid that dreaded Code 39. Code 37, code students who have received an extended diploma during the reporting period. Do not report students as exited when they receive an extended diploma if they continue to receive special education services. So if they continue to receive services, they are not considered as exited. And then finally, Code 39, that's dropped out. A student is considered dropped out if the student was enrolled during the current school year and has withdrawn from school and was enrolled in the previous school year but not in the current school year, meaning they didn't show up after the summer break and has no known enrollment elsewhere. Note that the 10-day drop rule does not necessarily apply to special ed students, so be really careful with those. Consider the medically fragile student who still requires FAPE, but they're just too sick to attend and be in their seat in school, and so they may be marked as 10-day absent, and they may be exited from the ADM system, but that does not exit them from special education. And please see the process and content manuals, like examples of what is considered a dropout and what is not considered a dropout. There's a list in there that kind of covers all of those options. So I wanted to talk a little bit more on modified diplomas because these are always the most difficult. A student who receives a modified diploma is still eligible for FAPE until they turn age 21. And if a student is expected back, you're going to report them as an active record on your June, if you're going to report them on June exit, you can report them as an active record. If you're just reporting your exit records, you're not going to put them on that as an exit record. But if the student does not show up the next year, you're going to exit the first day of school of the next year. If the student is not expected back and you are sure they are not returning, for example, you complete the summary of performance, they're set up for post-school employment or attending college, you're going to report them as exiting with a modified diploma, and they should be exited because they need to be exited in the year they actually exit. But the option you have, if the student does show back up in the fall, even though you weren't expecting them back because they're under age 21, during the review window, you can change that record either to an active record or remove it from your June exit. So you do have some options, but we want to make sure that we get all the students who have exited special ed reported on this report. It's part of a federal report, but we also know there are, modified diploma students under age 21 sometimes do kind of come and go. So if you are having trouble trying to figure out how to code them, talk to your special education director. If you're not sure how to report these students, they probably have a little bit more information that you may not have. Information is discussed during their annual IEP meeting, and we like to kind of talk about this because there's always a kind of a gap in Oregon. A significant number of post-school surveys are not completed for 2 years due to waiting more than 1 year after the student left to exit them. So we're kind of trying to help close that gap. But like I said, I know that does add some extra work for folks and having to kind of see if they come back or not, or if they don't return. So finally, I did want to mention Senate Bill 1522 modified Senate Bill 20. So the new rule passed during the spring of 2018 legislative session Students receiving a modified diploma after June 30th, 2018 will now continue to be eligible for FAPE until age 21. So if you had that in your notes, you know that FAPE ends, they removed that rule where modified diploma students, even if they have a modified diploma in hand, are still eligible for FAPE until age 21 now. So reviewing errors. So when you're submitting your June exit, after your submission file has uploaded or you've added records to your submission, before you can you need to finalize it, and to do that you need to verify your data submission for errors. Even if you've already validated your records in the data manager, once you import that file into Consolidated, you're going to need to check again for errors. Because sometimes there's SSID system errors that the data manager can't check. To get to your errors in Consolidated Collections, you're going to hover your mouse over the Student Collections menu header, then over June Special Education Exit Collection, then Error Management, then Review Errors. Click on Review Errors. If errors were found in your data, they will be listed there. And then to fix your error record, to fix errors by record in the Consolidated, click on Fix Errors link to the right of the error type and error description, and you'll see where that red arrow is pointing on this slide. You may have multiple errors under each error type, and after selecting Fix Errors, the screen will show you the records associated with that error needing attention. And this screen will show each record with an error under a particular error type. This error indicates that the record being submitted matches some of the core fields of the record in the SSID system, but the submitted record does not match all the core fields, which is usually basically the demographic fields. Under the error value, the system will give you the core data information on the record that you submitted and the record the system believes you are trying to submit. So for this record being submitted, the SSID matches another SSID in the system, but the birth date and the last 4 digits of the SSN or Social Security number, the district student ID, and the last name do not match. So there's more than 4 fields there. To fix each record error in Consolidated, you'll select that green check mark. Just click on that to the left of the record where that arrow on the slide is pointing. The record itself will then appear below the error. There are often multiple records with errors that need attention in the screen, and if you find out that you need to delete a record on the screen, click the red X to the right of the record. This deletes the record from your submission because it's an error. Once you have fixed the error, click the Save button at the bottom or the top of the record to save the record with the changes. And it'll show you the record saved will pop up and will appear at the top of the record if your record is free of errors, or it'll tell you if there are more that you need to resolve on that particular record. Once you have fixed all errors, return to the Review Errors screen under the Review Errors tab to ensure all records are resolved. And that was as we showed you on the previous slide. Then once you get all your errors cleared, then you're ready to go to your verification reports. And to do that, you're going to click on the Status Tracking tab. And I always like to talk about this because this is the easiest step to forget, and sometimes you think you're done, but some districts upload their data but forget to complete this final step, and your submission is not complete until all reports in the status tracking have been verified and approved. To complete this, like I said, click on the Status Tracking tab to view a list of the collections you have access to, like the one that you see on the slide. Yours might look a little different, because you might have access to different additional or different collections. Also, be sure to select the correct school year, 2018-19, which you will see just below the Status Tracking tab. This is important because you may be verifying exit records for the wrong year. Currently, it'll default to the current year. When you go next fall, when we go into the review window, when you go through the review process, you'll need to change that that school year drop down to the prior year. But currently, it should default, but double check just in case. So to verify your exit reports, click on the tiny arrow to the left of the collection name and date. In this case, we're looking at June Special Education Exit 18-19, and there's 4 reports that'll be listed that you'll need to view and approve. And then the 4 reports you need to approve are age at exit by exit reason, disability type by exit reason, race ethnicity by exit reason, and then the 4th one is the leaver verification report. And to approve a report, you're going to click on the small box to the left of the report name, and that'll expand the window, and you'll verify the numbers in the table that appears, and you're just verifying 18-19. There's 2 other school years there that you can use for comparison to ensure that the data are reasonable. If it's, you know, really off, then you might want to double check and make sure that you have everything in there. And if the counts are correct, then you're going to click on the Approve Report button in the bottom left, and then that red X to the right of the report will change to a green check mark, and then you'll repeat that for the remaining reports until you have all green check marks. And then after you get, you know, you approve all 4 reports, then you're going to have access to the final submission form. And that's going to appear just above the report's name. It's a little button. Click on the button and print out your final submission form, sign it, scan it, and email it to our office as the address on the slide. If you're unable to scan and email it, you may mail it to the address on the bottom of the final submission form. There does not need to, and you don't need to send this by registered or certified mail. Save your money. You don't need to do that. The schedule of due dates and pertinent collection materials for this and other collections can also be found on the ODE district web page, which that's hyperlinked on the slide on the, so you'll be able to access that on the PowerPoint. And remember, the exit collection opens May 23rd, 2019 and closes July 1st of 2019. There's a correction period, as I mentioned earlier, for the exit that will open this fall, and that's going to open on August 22nd, 2019, and will close September 16th of 2019. Let me repeat that. The review window will open August 22nd, 2019, and will close September 16th, 2019. And as always, look for the listserv message reminders from us to let you know when those are going to be opening and closing. We like to try to keep you informed. And then again, here's our, if you have questions about the exit collection or anything else for that matter, please don't hesitate to give us a call.
We do have some questions in there.
Yep, and it looks like we do have some questions. Oh my goodness, yes, we have quite a few. Pointing out, oh, thank you very much. Thank you, Mary. I'm having trouble figuring out which one's the first question. So what if they receive a modified or certificate and the teacher was told by them they are not returning? Can we go ahead and exit them? You want to make sure that they are returning. Usually, you know, when students are leaving, you know, or exiting and they have a modified diploma, there's really not, you know, there's paperwork that needs to be done, like the summary of performance and other paperwork that's usually done, you know, before them leaving. But I do understand sometimes they're just saying, hey, I'm not coming back. You know, if you know that they're not, you know, are they going to go to another district? You know, if they say, I'm not coming back to the teacher, does that mean they're going to another district? Because if they move to another district, if they're under age 21, they are still eligible for services. So you probably have to do a lot more digging to ensure, you know, they're not coming back for sure. But usually there's more paperwork and things that need to happen, you know, at least an IEP meeting to make sure everything's squared away and done, and they're truly not coming back. And like I said, what we want you to do is try to exit them in the year that they exit. And, you know, the good news is that because that review window opens in the fall, then you're able to kind of either add or, you know, delete records off of the June special ed exit report. So hopefully that helps. Next question is, I want to confirm active students do not need to be reported in the June exit collection. The district file can contain only exited records. Yeah, you can, so for school age, yeah, it's for a district, yeah, you can report active records if you want to. You can upload them, they'll upload it into, you know, if you import that file and they contain both active and exit, all of them are going to go in there, including your exit records. We're just not going to be looking at those active records. So if you want to upload a file with those in there, you can. I know but they're talking about a district. And as I mentioned earlier, the only difference here being the A2 records for an ECSE service center, but I assume this is a district, and that's why I said school age when I started answering this question. But just to clarify, this is school age that I'm talking about, not ECSE. ECSE is, the A2 records are a little different. That's the anomaly and the only active record that we expect. Your slide date is wrong. It says June 30th of 2018, and it should be 2019. Oh, is that okay to exit the modified?
Those are two different questions. Thank you, Linda. Is it okay? Yeah.
That one? Is it okay to exit the modified or certificate students, or if they do not return, make them active then? Yes, you can. If you come in the fall and they've returned, they didn't actually exit or leave, you find out that they didn't leave, you can change it to, from an E3 to an A3 record. Yeah, and or you could delete them off of your exit report. That's up to you, whatever you want to do. Good question. Is code 32 used for GED, which is received certificate? Yes. So if a student leaves special ed and they leave school without any other credential in hand, and they're not going to, if they're under age 21, make sure that they're not duly enrolled, because students can be working on GED and receiving special education services from your district at the same time. If they're duly enrolled, they haven't exited special ed. But if they do leave and that's the only credential they have in hand is their GED, then yes, you would use code 32, receive the certificate. How do you code inter-district transfer agreement kids for child find? Oh, we're going to go back to a child find question. For child find for attending school, etc.
How do you code inter-district agreement kids for child find for attending school? So kids on an inter-district agreement, it would be where they're attending school. So they might be a kid that's living in the Salem School District. There's an inter-district agreement for them to go to Woodburn, and Woodburn would be the school district that would be doing the child find and reporting the child.
Next question is, what do you do if you have no exit records? Okay, good question. Yeah, if you have no exit records, then you still need to log in and verify your reports and status tracking in order for your collection to be considered complete. That is an excellent question. So yeah, make sure you go into status tracking and approve those 4 reports. It's going to, your data tables are going to pull open and you're going to have 0 students in there, but you do still need to approve all of those reports and print off and submit your final submission form to us. So thank you for asking that question. Excellent. So next question, if a student ages out, it looks like August 30th of 2019, do you exit them June 30th, 2019 or June 30th of 2020? So the magic day, that's another really good question. The magic day is September 1st. If they turn 21 prior to September 1st, then you're going to need to exit them on that prior year June exit report. So as like you said, if they turn 21 on August 30th of 2019, you're going to report them as an exit record on the June Special Ed 2018-2019 exit report. So thank you to that person for asking that question too. Very good. Yeah, and like I said, the magic line in the sand is September 1st for turning 21. Exited school age warning, race ethnicity does not match. Oh, I think this may be one of our error messages or audits that we provide to you. Exiting school age warning, race ethnicity does not match December child count. Do we need to call the December child count reporting district to see what they reported? So I'm going to address that first. So if a student enrolls new in your district and then they enter your district and they leave again and they come from another district, but you've had them fill out paperwork and that's what the parent indicated as their race ethnicity, you can leave that record alone and confirm that audit message. If you're not sure and you just want to double check with the previous district to think, well, maybe somewhere in the paperwork things got messed up and you're not quite sure, then you can do a bit of checking too. So ultimately what I always tell people, if that race, if what you've reported on that record by your district is accurate, don't change that race ethnicity just to make it match something that was reported on another collection. Next question. How do I merge records reported for our charter school since Baker does their report and I do the local students? I think I would like to talk to this. Can you send me an email? Let's talk through that, because that's kind of a complicated thing, I think, to answer on a webinar, and I want to make sure I don't tell you something inaccurate, because that's kind of like talking two different items. So I think we'll table that, and please send me an email, and my email address is hyperlinked on the slide if you don't, if you're not sure what it is. Students aging out in August but attending summer school. When do I exit them? 19 or 20? I think that was the same. I answered this is the same question I answered previously. If they turn 21 prior to September 1st, you're going to need to exit them on the June Special Ed Exit 2018-19 or this year's June Exit report. So good question. And then finally, we've got one more. It looks like, is it okay to exit the modified or certificate students? And if they do not return, make them active then? Yeah, I mean, you can change them back if if they come back and it's determined, oh, they didn't actually exit. Like I said, you can change. That's what the review window is for in the fall without penalty. You can make corrections, deletions, whatever you need to do to make those records accurate in your June Special Ed Exit. So I think we've got all of our questions answered. And again, if you do have additional questions or think of things, because sometimes you think about things for a little while, then something pops into your mind, as always, feel free to give us a call if you have questions about anything we've talked about thus far. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sally Simich and James Fouch, who are going to talk about the post-school outcome data collection. And when it opens, they're going to talk about when it opens and closes, how you can access the application, and other tips and tricks to help you with that particular collection. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sally Simich, and she's going to talk about post-school outcomes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Glad that you could make it to this afternoon on this sunny day. The sun is shining and it looks like we might have a nice Memorial Day weekend. So I appreciate you being online for this. So we're going to start talking about the post-school outcome collection. And the first thing we want to talk about is that it's opening on June 1st and it will be closing on September 30th. So that's really important dates to remember. This is the interview that you make 1 year after students leave. That is when that collection is opened. When you go into the district website under quick links, you can find where your who your district security administrator is. And this is the person that would give you access to the PSO 2.0 application. The district decides who would be the person or people to have access to this system. But just a reminder to everyone that makes those decisions, this system was set up separately so that the interviewers that interview the data could use the system during that time. Then you would click on, once you get access, you would click on the 2.0, PSO 2.0. So what we found last year is that districts need to document attempts to contact 100% of their leavers on their list. It used to be a sample, it's now a census. So you are contacting everyone that left 1 year after they'd been in the school system. The target completion rate is 85%. So looking at your list of students, we're hoping that you shoot for an 80% of getting respondent rate. And then the PSO, we need to remember, is the first part of the consolidated plan. One thing we found last year is that districts left some of the student leaver reports they didn't document it. They left them open. They didn't do their attempts. So make sure that we don't leave things incomplete. When you get into the system, this is what it will look like. And what you'll find there is that under the PSO 2.0, you can enter data, you can review reports, or you can download data. Before you can access this, though, you need to update the contact information. So at the bottom, you'll see name, position, email, phone. That's where you need to update. There are new people in your district, and oftentimes that information doesn't get uploaded. When we look at that information online, sometimes we notice that only a special education director or a support staff have their name there. And then we look at other districts where they may put 49 different contacts in because they have a variety of people doing interviews and they have a variety of people that want to see the PSO information. So just make sure that whoever is doing those interviews has access to the system, and this is where their information would go. We also use this contact information when we're sending out emails. So what happens is we might send out a mass email about the transition conference, or we may send out a mass email about a PSO training. So we want to make sure that you have it updated so that the people that would be a part of whatever the email is get that information. So remember, there are two different types of interviews that happen during this time. The exit interview is not mandatory, it's optional, but it's critical for you getting contact information to make that phone call 1 year later. This is an opportunity when you're doing the exit information and collecting it, that you're talking to families about the post-school outcome process and about the phone call that would be made to the students. It's also an opportunity for you to talk about when those phone calls would be made, because this exit interview, it's gonna actually, here it says it's gonna open in February and close in September, but we've made some changes to our system, and what you're gonna find is that the exit interview can stay open. So when a phone number changes, you can change it in the exit interview information. So, and then remember, for the exit interview, you need an agreement to participate. It's required from the parent or the adult student. And there's a written agreement that's right inside the system that you can print off and have a parent or an 18-year-old student sign. This is a time where we're going to enter names, contact information. We're going to talk, there's some questions on there about some experiences that they've had in school. And some districts are adding a little more information from the student, like if you could have anybody from school call you, who would that person be? Interview tips are most of the time you can educate students while doing the exit interview, or you can do it during their 12th grade IEP. You could have, there is a postcard that is in the under the resource tab that you can print off. Students could fill out that postcard to themselves, and you could be sharing the information about that phone call, and you could send that postcard home ahead of time. And then also asking that student again, who would be that person that you want to make that phone call? When we look at the exit interview, we look at the information where districts need to enter the student's state SSID number in this section, and then confirm the student. And once the student's name appears on the list, it becomes a link to enter the interview data. There's been a lot of confusion around this, so we want to just say it again. The exit interview needs a signed agreement to participate because they are still a part of our school system, and it can be found at the this website, or it can be found inside the PSO application. For the follow-up interview, an agreement to participate is not required because the students have been out of our school system for 1 year. When that student or family member replies to our questions, they have actually given their consent for this interview. Districts are not required to conduct follow-up interviews, even if the student or family, oh, sorry, I said that wrong. So if they refuse to do the exit interview, you still have to contact them and they have to do the follow-up interview. So even if they refuse to do the exit, we still have to contact them to see if they would do the follow-up interview. The follow-up interview is a mandatory collection. There are some districts out there that did not do their follow-up interview, and when we sign our assurances, we say we'll do all federal collections. This is a federal collection. So there's a list of students that will be provided inside the PSO 2.0 for the people that need to be interviewed. All leavers need to be called. The online data entry is the way we suggest to do it. We've spoken to districts and they say this takes extra time, takes extra manpower. We understand that, but we also understand that if you do it right in the system and don't do paper copies, you are doing it only one time. The outcomes that we talk about with students when we're making that phone call need to be in that 12 months after leaving school. So if you end up having a student on your list that's been out for 2 years and you're calling them, just remember the outcomes need to be in that first year. And remember that the collection opens in June and it closes in September. As a part of the, this is where you can find the district current school year data. So this is where you'll see under the dashboard, the follow-up dashboard on SPR&I, you will find all of that current data. We used to hold all the data in the PSO system, but since the stoplights have been entered on SPR&I and you have a tab for indicator 14, the PSO collection, you can find all your information in there. The call log summarizes the information. So what we found is districts that do the exit interviews have a higher response rate, meaning they've gotten the correct phone calls, they've gotten or phone numbers, they've been able to contact people from the information that they've collected before they left school. And this is the form to track contact attempts and what the status is of that student.
So, hi, this is James. James Fouch. I'm a research analyst. I'm going to be taking over from here. So, inside the application, we have resources for interviewers to use. Some of the resources along with the rest of the application this year is getting a facelift. As you can see, it's a little bit different if you've seen it before. but this information is also available and more on the Transition Community Network site linked on the slide. So this is the general process that most districts use to conduct their follow-up interviews. They download instructions, print call logs, send out postcards, and that one's big. We have a postcard available for every district out there, and sending that out does help with reminding students that their interviews are coming up. Assigning calls to somebody who's familiar also helps increase response. And completing that interview using the online data entry is so much easier than doing it multiple times, doing paper and then handing it off to somebody else to put it in. So reaching students. Evenings and weekends we found are the most likely times that students are going to be available. Just remember that when you do speak to a student or a parent or anybody else in getting this data, that confidentiality is of the utmost importance. Inside the application, there are multiple reports available in the report section of the application. Most are available going back to 2011, 2012. We have the follow-up interview summary report, which gives a summary of all of your interviews by district and by school. We also have the engagement summary report, which is a bit more detailed than what's on the dashboard for each district.
So this is where we talk about the consolidated plan. And as a part of indicator 14, well, it's all the transition indicators are a part of the college and career ready section of the consolidated plan. So the information that you can find and the data that you find in PSO 2.0 or the information that data that you can find under the indicator 14 and SPR&I can help you to answer these questions.
So we also wanted to go over some brief but important changes to both the follow-up survey and the follow-up application. Beginning in the 1819, with the 1819 exit interview that opened this year, we're no longer closing the exit interview. Beginning September 2019, districts will need to enter the school year the student is expected to leave. This will allow for districts to enter this exit interview data and update it at any point throughout the year. The interviewer questions pre-interviewer section has changed to include a question about eligibility for the student. This is one of two places that you'll be able to enter this information. In the past, districts that found a student who was enrolled currently or was still receiving services would have to call us, and then we would go in and delete the student from the system. We're no longer deleting data from the system. We want to start keeping better track of this. Interviewers or district personnel will be able to mark a student as ineligible. When you do that, they must then record why they should be ineligible. There are currently 3 options with an open-ended other choice. And the choices are received services after leaving special education, enrolled in school after leaving special education, or student passed away. To the extent possible, ODE will verify students marked as ineligible. Person interviewed. So the other option is changing to an open-ended other text box. So when you go to that option, you're going to have to enter something in. This is to provide the relationship to the student that would not fall in either the student or family member category. Please do not enter the person's name that you're talking to or their job title or anything like that. Only the relationship to the student, like caseworker, inmate, etc. So reasons for not completing the interview. Refused is going away. That's a specific question that I'm going to be talking about later that will capture refusals. Deceased is also going away. That's being captured by the initial question about eligibility. The other option is also changing to, again, an open-ended other text box. Please enter information in this box that would explain why it does not fit in any of the other categories. And the notes section is now required. Provide as much detail as you'd like, but please don't give us a novel. We'll be placing some additional guidance on what is expected of notes on the district site. The pre-interview section, we're actually adding this question that's required, and it will capture refusals. An answer of no is a refusal and means you may stop the interview. If they answer yes, you can go on ahead. As we clarified in prior trainings, unless the student is under 18, unless they are nonverbal, or you know that the parent or guardian holds some additional legal say over the student, only the student can truly refuse to answer the survey. In the case when a student is verbal and is 18 or older and you're not speaking with that student and they refuse, go ahead and mark this question as refused, but that does not mean you should stop attempting to contact the student directly. Again, we'll have more clarification for that in the application. In the employment section, rather than asking for the respondent's job title, we're going to be asking for the company that they worked for instead. This is used to follow up with specific organizations where we find that the student says they're not making minimum wage. And again, we're not going to be calling up a mom and pop store, but if they're working for Walmart and they say they're making less than minimum wage, we want to know. Last year, the U.S. Department of Education changed the definition of competitive employment to include an integrated component. As such, the ODE had to add several questions to identify this integrated component. This is the beginning of those new questions. So this question is on the interviewer to answer. We do not want you to ask this of the person that you're talking to. If the organization is well known, like Walmart, Fred Meyer, McDonald's, etc., then we can be reasonably sure all employees are paid the same and receive the same benefits, meaning the interviewer may skip over the next two new questions. So that first question, were you paid the same amount? Integrated employment requires we determine if the student was paid as much as other employees who did similar work. We're again only asked this question if the organization is not well known, like it's a small mom and pop store that only operates in one town, or it is just not someplace the interviewer has ever heard of. Also, and if they received any kind of benefits. Again, this question should only be asked if the place of employment is not well known. The next two questions get at whether the respondent was or is paid minimum wage. So first, what city or town did you work in? In the application, this is going to be a drop-down list with a list of options. If you select other, it will allow you to add a city that isn't in the list. Finally, this one's hopefully straightforward. What's your hourly wage? If the respondent replies with, I make minimum wage, we don't expect you to press, just enter minimum wage. Otherwise, if they give you $10.50, we expect you to enter $10.50. So this question is attempting to get at competitive integrated employment. Again, the emphasis is on interaction with other employees, not with supervisors or customers. So did they interact with other coworkers? Was that part of their job? And again, integrated employment. Did the respondent know if they were eligible for pay raise, promotion, etc.? Application updates. So we are making some updates to the application that will go live when the follow-up collection goes live. Most of the changes are visual, window dressing really, but the underlying technology was updated as well, so we hope that the application will work across more browsers and devices. This is a preview of what the updates will look like. If you are familiar with the IDEA Data Manager, you will be familiar with this. So there are also two main additions to functionality that we're adding. Add follow-up student. So this is for those cases where you know a student has left. They may not have been reported during the June exit collection, which is our primary source of data for this collection. This function will allow a district to add a student they believe should be on their list. Due to how exit data is collected, students with a modified diploma are sometimes missed, plus students that may have been misreported will often not show up on a district's follow-up interview list. There will be an Add Student button at the top of the district's list of schools and at the top of the school student list. Upon clicking the Add Student button, a pop-up box or similar page will ask for the student's SSID. If it's a valid SSID, a student will be returned. The system will check if another district has already entered follow-up information for that student, and if so, the user will be notified of the district that claimed the student, giving the user the option of talking with the district about that student. If the student has no follow-up data anywhere in the system, the user will be asked to confirm the school they want the student to be sorted to provide the student's primary disability at exit, provide the reason they left special education, and users may also enter in any contact information they have for the student that will be included in printed call logs. Finally, mark not eligible. This is the second place that a district can mark a student as ineligible, and it's from the actions drop-down menu on the list of students. This allows them to mark a student as not eligible without going into the student's interview record. The user will still be asked why they're being marked as ineligible and will still have the same options as if they were in the student's follow-up interview record. Students marked as ineligible will not count toward their dashboard metrics.
James, before we end, I would like to remind people that this year, again, we are going to award districts funds for making the interview calls. And it will be that you submitted them online on time, and it's $15 per student. The other thing is one of the changes that we've made that we've announced throughout the year is that we started with a student base of $150. So it's $150 plus however many phone calls you make and collect the data, and it's submitted online on time. That way our smaller school districts that may be only making 1 or 2 phone calls can end up with some substantial funds to be able to purchase a registration, an assessment, but anything that will increase their post-school outcomes.
Okay, question time. And Sally, since you can't see these, I'm going to read them out.
Okay.
Is the student profile a required document? If this information spans several documents, does that count as a transition profile page?
I'm not sure what we're talking about.
Question. Bobby, if you're still in there, could you respond with a clarification on that, and we'll come back to it. All right. If a student was exited and returned to general education between December and end of May, do we still need to do an exit interview?
If a student exited in May?
Exited and returned to general education.
Okay. So if you're not going to make a phone call to that student, because we only make phone calls to students that have left our system on an IEP. So if that student exited special ed services and went back to general ed services, they would not be on your list for phone calls. So you do not have to gather contact information on an exit interview.
All right. For the exit interview, can we get the parent okay over the phone, or does it actually need to be signed by the parent?
It says that it needs to be written. You can have it okayed over the phone with a date, and then when you see the parent, I would have them sign it.
Will the agreement to participate ever be changed to reflect under 18 years of age or 18 plus with guardianship retained?
Well, there's 2 forms in there right now, one for under 18 and one for over 18. So you can use either form depending on the age of the student, and there could be changes made towards that.
Okay. What if they did not work in a city, i.e. ranch work?
James, how do you want them to respond to that?
So, nearest city will be fine.
Or county, right?
Yeah, nearest city or county.
Okay.
Is there a way to add a follow-up student for this year's collection? Yes, you will be able to add students to this year's follow-up interview collection with the updates that are coming June 1. So yeah, Leanne asked, this is for retained guardianship. So over 18, but the parents are retaining guardianship. Asking if we're going to update the permission to interview.
We can.
But you should be able to use the 18 plus.
Yes.
And just have the parent sign it instead. Same concept.
Yes.
Any other questions? All right.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so with that, the webinar is, the recording will be posted hopefully later today on the video training page. If it doesn't appear, don't worry, we'll try to get that out there tomorrow. Again, like I said, if you do have questions or need additional information, feel free to give a call or email anyone on the slides. We provided those contact slides for you to contact us, and we're always happy to help. And feel free, to give us a call or email us at any time. So with that, thank you so much for all your hard work that you do in submitting these collections and preparing the data to submit to these collections, and have a great day. Thank you.